Welcome to the Agent Upgrade Podcast with your hosts Jasmine Cronetten and Alan Corey, where we learn the strategies of top producing real estate agents so you have the tools to upgrade your own real estate career.
Welcome to Agent Upgrade with Jasmine and Alan. It's been a second, Alan. How are you?
Hey, good. I know we've both been busy doing our own thing, so apologies to the audience here for a little delay in releasing an episode, but it just means we've teed up something great for you today.
Yes, I am super excited about our guest today. We are having the world's best real estate appraiser, Kelly Riedinger, join us today, and she is going to tell us a little bit about all the important things that real estate agents want to know about appraisals, but maybe don't, or haven't had a chance to quite think through everything yet. So we're going to grill her. She's been in business for a really long time. She's actually been in business longer than I. I think she got into the business like in 96. So yeah, she's coming up on 2.5, 3 decades. So it's been a second. So she's seen it all. And she's absolutely wonderful. So I'm super excited for everyone to talk to her.
Yeah. I mean, I want, Kelly's great, but also learning about appraisals because it's necessary in every single deal. I'm excited to learn what through an appraiser eyes, what can agents be doing better, in hot markets and bidding wars, or a unique property, what counts as a bedroom, was basement square footage worth less, those sort of questions. If you do have to fight an appraisal, what can we do to fight for our clients? So jam-packed episode, and I'm excited. Let's bring Kelly into the studio today. Hey Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for that great intro. I loved it.
Awesome. well, we appreciate you being here. It's great.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
We love it. Well, you are one of the best. You've been in business for a really, really long time. And so tell us just a little bit about, let's start at the beginning. Like, how the heck have you survived?
I don't know sometimes. I think the most difficult time in my career would be 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
Very difficult time. And appraisers actually saw it coming a little bit before realtors and mortgage companies did. Mm-hmm. We started seeing values falling and appraisals were coming in low and everybody was just throwing up their hands. What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. You're not appraising correctly. They paid more than that. So surviving those few years was difficult. And I actually had to get 3 other jobs in addition to appraising just to make ends meet. And I'm still appraising after all these years. So it doesn't get much worse than that.
So if you're the first to see sort of a downfall, are you seeing a downfall right now? Because a lot of people are thinking, hey, this is a real estate crash. It's going to be like 2008, 2009. Are you seeing similar patterns?
No. I'm not. Prior to 2007 and 8, it was the wild, wild west. Anybody could get a loan on absolutely anything. I used to joke that you could, have a cat litter box with a roof on it, and a lender would make a loan on it. Yeah. But the loans are different now. I think Jasmine can speak to this, but I think there's a lot more criteria that a borrower has to qualify for to get a mortgage. Stated income loans are no more, thank goodness. Because I would go and do appraisals and everybody in the family was at the house in their pajamas at 4:00 in the afternoon. So I knew nobody there was working. And I was seeing things like that naturally concerned me, and I just knew there was a crash coming. So back to your question, am I seeing anything like that now? No. I am seeing, for seemingly similar properties, I am seeing a wide range of sales prices. And that's because some of them have sold in March, April, May, when it was really competitive and people were overbidding, and some have sold within the last couple of months and it's a little quieter. In my personal opinion, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing, Alan. In my personal opinion, I don't think that the market is falling. and I don't think it's depreciating. I think we're coming back to norm.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
A more normal status.
No,
I
yeah,
agree.
I think that it's stabilizing. It's natural.
Exactly.
There was a frenzy, but now it's sort of like a more evenly balanced market. So I think this is a
So
healthier
too.
market to be in than what we were before, for sure.
I think
Yeah.
one interesting, I ran some numbers, and this is kind of, because I'm a geek, I like numbers, but like
Me too.
I just threw around some numbers and I was playing around with it. So like, let's say that, last year or beginning of this year, like you would there were properties where you had to bid like $100,000 over asking to get the property, right? So now you may not have to go $100,000 over asking, but the interest rates are higher. So over a 5-year period, you're kind of going to be in the same place.
Yeah.
Either way, right? Either you
Your
pay
monthly payments.
$100,000 upfront extra at 3% rates, or you pay a little bit less upfront, but you have a slightly higher rate. Actually, this is probably going to be a better deal, right? Because it's going to take you 5 years to spend those $100,000 extra. And so
Right.
that's an interesting view, at least for me, because I like numbers. I thought that
Right.
was interesting because we're just coming back to normal, and there is still multiple offers. But I'm agreeing with you, Kelly. I think that maybe some sellers, real estate agents, are having a little bit of a hard time pricing because they are not really quite sure, like, how far do we go back on these comps? And if something's sold in March and April, is that still a valid comp? Can I use that? Right. So
Right.
maybe you could speak a little bit to that, like, as far as like comps, what's a good rule of thumb, and how does it need to be?
Well, I've been talking with other appraiser friends of mine, and really, in all fairness, those comps that sold at those higher prices, an adjustment should be made for the time. It sold in a time that was, I hate to use the word distressed, but it was a time where buyers were distressed. They were so anxious to get what they wanted. They were paying over. They were waiving the appraisal. They were offering to pay over appraised value. And that's not really a true market.
Yeah.
To me, that's more of a distressed market. So, usually the value is going to fall somewhere in between the current comps that have sold and the really high ones. The value is going to fall somewhere in between.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So what about like, as far as, let's say that you buy a house and you want to, let's say you're going to buy something and you're going to renovate it, and then you want to put it back on the market and sell it again. How does that look from your perspective when you see something like that was just that they picked up like 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 12 months ago? Is there a different criteria that it opens up for you to be able to select comps and value?
Most of the ones that I do, the investors are pretty savvy, and they know that, the deal is all hinges on what they pay for the property originally. That's everything. So I'm not seeing any investors that are not doing well. Maybe they're not getting $350 for a house. Maybe they're getting $330. But I'm not seeing people losing money.
And how
Right.
does it impact, like, if they bought it, let's say they bought it for 200
Okay.
3 months ago, and now they've renovated it, and now they want to sell it. Is there a timeline that they need to wait from the time they sell to be able to use like other comps? Or how long does that value, what they bought it for, does that have any kind of an impact on what they can sell it for?
The value, that the price they bought it for,
The
does
price
that
they
have an
bought it.
impact? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
It does not. And I know this is really boring information, but really waiting till spring is the best. Every year it's the best strategy. And the spring market in Atlanta started in January last year. So, and it may again this year. So I'm really anxious to, when we get to the first of the year and we approach spring and we start to see what happens in the market again, because we still have low inventory. So it'll be interesting to see if we get multiple offers, people, standing in line at the door the first day it's open to the public. I just don't know, but I'm anxious to see what happens.
So speaking of the multiple offer situation, let's say you're appraising a property, it's listed for 400,000. Comps say it's 400,000. Agent standing there and says, I got 10 offers between 425 and 450.
Mm-hmm. I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah. So do you take those multiple offers into consideration when you're appraising the property, even though comps may not support it yet, but the current market is screaming that this is underpriced?
It doesn't. I do take it into consideration, and I will note it in the appraisal. The subject received, 10 offers within 48 hours or whatever the deal may be, to tell an underwriter what I'm seeing in the market, what our market is like. If there are no sales in that price range, there's nothing much I can do to support that value.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if they receive 100 offers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as it's all a numbers game for us, and we have to see what the values are. And the way we do that is by the sales. So if you have a 1,300 square foot house that's selling for 450, and I look at the way I pull comps is I look at everything and I price it in FMLS. I go from the highest price to the lowest. I start out the highest and I just keep going down until I see houses with similar bedroom square footage as my subject. And then I kind of fall into the price that way. And I learn a bit about the market as well. But going back to that example, if I see a 2,000 square foot house that's selling around the same price and they got a 1,300 square foot house, well, that tells me something too. So I'm not only looking at the comp, I'm looking at what a buyer can get for the money in that market.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, let's say you have a 2,000 square foot houses in your comps. One's a 3-bedroom, one's a 2-bedroom. So is one more valuable in your eyes than the other because it has an extra bedroom, even though the square footage is the same?
Absolutely. Because that's the utility of the home. And if you have, the majority of people want not just for their use, for their family, but for resale value, a 3-bedroom over a 2. That's why if I am appraising, say, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, that's not going to appeal to everyone. It's great, for certain people, maybe a couple, but because it's unique and a little different, I try only to use 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom comps so I can prove that 2-1 market value.
So along those lines, so if you have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath with a dining room, would it be useful to go ahead and barricade off the dining room and call it a bedroom, or is there any rules around what?
Okay, now I know what you've been telling your borrowers.
All the dining rooms are gone. There is no dining rooms left.
Just put a bed in there and tell Kelly it's a bedroom.
Yeah.
In order to qualify as a bedroom, there are a few things that have to happen. Number one, most important, it has to have a closet. Okay. And it has to be able to fit typical bedroom furniture. Mm-hmm. So a bed, a dresser, a nightstand. Yeah.
It needs a window, right?
If you're above grade, it needs a window. Yes.
Okay.
Below grade, no. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I thought also half the ceiling height has to be at least 7 feet. At least half of it has to be 7 feet.
It has to be, let's see, what does ANSI say? It has to be, yes, 7 feet. And if there's a sloped vaulted ceiling, I measure up to 5 feet and then measure across, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you have to have at least 5 or 6 feet in ceiling height. So it may if it's a sloped roof, it may end up being a very skinny bedroom, but it's still a bedroom.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So how about a bedroom and a basement? Because I know there's some that's like, is this above ground bedroom, below ground? And then,
Right.
sometimes the square footage doesn't count in a basement. Can you kind of walk us through the nuances there?
I would say that's the main question about basements that I get I've had every day for 27 years. The basement and square footage. So we look at it as above grade and below grade. So really, and if you look on the appraisal form on the left side of the grid where the comps go, it says above grade square footage where you put the GLA, the general living area, and then it'll say below grade. So both areas count, but the square footage of the house is only above grade.
And just to clarify, above grade means what?
Above grade means in anything that is not below grade. Anything that is, sorry, I couldn't resist. Anything that, if you have even one corner of a level, say a split foyer, or a split level, and then just one corner is below grade, then that level is basement.
So grade, we're saying like the property, the where the dirt level is, that's grade, right?
Right. So if you're standing at the front door and there's a whole level beneath you, then that is below grade basement. Now, a lot of realtors say to me, no, it's got great finishes. It's equivalent to the upper level and it's terrace level on the back, meaning it's open on 3 sides. It's still a basement. Terrace level is more of a marketing term. And like I said, we just use above and below grade.
So is there a universal discount on below grade square footage?
Discount? What do you mean?
Like you're obviously calling it out differently on the appraisal.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that? Is it not worth as much as the above grade?
It's not worth as much as above grade. That is correct.
Is there a formula to determine that discount? That why is the upgrade has a premium, obviously. So what is the difference?
There's not really a formula other than, there's not a piece of paper I have that says adjust this much for basements.
Okay.
But it is less than the above grade square footage. I can tell you that. And it depends on what neighborhood you're in. If you're in Country Club of the South, it's going to be one thing. If you're in East Atlanta, where I live, is going to be another. So you just have to kind of go in and see what people are giving for basements in that neighborhood. And the way to do that is to make adjustments to your comp for everything except the basement. So say you have a slab and you're comparing it to a basement house, and then that variance, say you have 30,000 left over in value. Well, then that kind of tells you this is sort of what a buyer in the market is giving to basements.
Okay. And then is there a difference? How do you determine the difference between an unfinished basement and a finished basement? Is it like,
Right. That's a good question. Finished basement, the number one thing, it has to be heated and cooled. We like heated and cooled. And it's funny because in town, we have a lot of people that just do like a concrete wash on the floor and it's still finished because, people like that here.
Concrete floors are cool.
And some people leave the duct work open and they just paint it. And to me, that's still finished. But the most important thing is heated and cooled. I want to see some drywall and some rooms. And even if an unfinished area is also heated and cooled, I'll give that a little bit of value toward being finished as well.
Okay. So someone who has an unfinished basement, question I get all the time, should I finish this off before I sell it? Or what's my return on the basement? It seems like, yes, it'll increase the price. Just make sure it's heated and cooled is generally the thing, but there's not a universal formula because it depends on the neighborhood and recent comps. Everything comes back to comps. Like, is there other homes in your neighborhood where basements are being perceived as more valuable in this neighborhood than compared to other neighborhoods?
That's really hard. And I wish that before people did renovations, finish basements, finish their kitchens, whatever, I wish they would call an appraiser and have an appraisal done that says, okay, once you finish, spending all this money, then your house will be worth this. Okay. So they have a more realistic vision, because still today, I did an appraisal this week for someone, and they spent all this money on the house about 2 months ago. They just finished the renovations and they wanted dollar per dollar out of it. And I had the very difficult task of explaining to them it doesn't happen that way. Now you do obviously you get more value once the renovations are done. Okay. Any kind of renovations. You get some value. It's not dollar per dollar, but one of the ways I try to explain to people is you have to look at it as if your house with no renovations appreciates at maybe 2% per year. And that's low for Atlanta, 2% per year, but you do the renovations, you do all these improvements, maybe you'll appreciate it 5% per year. So it's the passage of time plus the upgrade in quality and whatever improvements you've done to the property. So it's really both things.
This is wonderful. And I know we're rapid firing questions to you, but as you talk, I've got like 10 more questions to go. So how much do you pay attention to the builder, the cachet of the builder or the architect? Sometimes I've seen, star architects, historical or famous architects, like this crazy premium that on a house that I wouldn't expect. Like, do you look into that house to house, or do you need sort of a nudging from a real estate agent to say, hey, this is a unique property because of XYZ, or hey, this is a builder that did it, which is much better than that builder who built that house that's the same?
No, I like hearing that. Okay. I want to hear that. I want to know more about the builder and the architect. And there are a few here that I already know that I consider rock star builders, and I know when I go in that house, it is going to be top-notch quality. Makes my job very easy. Right. But no, I like hearing things like that. I really do. Okay. Any history of the property is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
I want to ask about ADUs.
Okay.
I guess just riff on that for a second. How does that impact, an apartment above the garage? How much value does it add if it's a full-on house out back there, or just a little bit of something? Whatever your typical questions are on ADUs.
ADUs are hot. Are they not? I mean, they are huge right now because they can be in-law suites, they can be guest suites, they can be rented out to Airbnb. The teenagers can hang out there, whatever. They are in demand. And the more they're in demand, the more value I give them, because the buyers in the market are speaking to me, and that's what I'm hearing. Of course, you're going to get more value for a detached house with the functionality of a kitchen and a couple bedrooms and a bathroom. You're going to get more value for that than you would something that's finished over a garage. Not because it's over a garage, but just say maybe it's an exercise room with a little half bath. The more utility you have, the more value you have, the more options you have as a homeowner to use that space.
So this leads me into an ADU, accessory dwelling unit, also called a detached housing, if people aren't familiar with that phrase. I've seen them as pool houses. Is that considered utility? And then my follow-up question is, how much value or does a pool add or subtract to a house? Yeah.
Good question. I love answering that question. And because this is similar to what I was saying, that as the demand for the ADUs goes up, my value, or the value I give it, goes up because the market is speaking to me. The same with pools. We used to give like $10,000 maybe for a pool, and and I know how much they cost. So
$100,000
was an annoyance. It was.
Yeah.
I know. It used to be $65,000. You had the pool of a dream, and now it's just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But after COVID, people started wanting their own pools. Understandably, they don't want to go to with all the public and share the pool and the water and all this. So the queues for the pool contractors were like a year long. So I took this and I noticed that people were starting to pay more for houses with lots that were amenable to building a pool, and they were paying more for houses with pools. So I went way up on my values because the market again was speaking to me. And and I listen when they speak.
Right.
You're the appraisal whisperer.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's funny because a lot of times, especially newer agents, not to single them out because they're all wonderful, but they question me and they're writing down, how much do you give for a bedroom? How much do you give for a bathroom? How much do you give for a pool? It depends. It depends on the market. It depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the time of year. I mean, I wish it were that easy, but if it were, I probably would be out of a job.
Yes. I think that pools are one of those really interesting things that have kind of come in and out of fashion, but like right now they're so hot. I find it interesting how you're able to answer all these questions, Kelly, without really putting a dollar amount on anything.
You noticed that, huh?
I noticed that.
I have to be very careful. But Alan, did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
No, yeah, it did. To me, that's what I've been telling clients too, that like, hey, before COVID, pools took longer to sell and you could get them for a lower price. Post COVID, they sell at a premium. And if you install a pool, you'll get your money back. And before I'd be like, you can install a pool if you want to, but it's not an investment in the home. So I think things have changed. Maybe it'll change back one day. Who knows? But for now, that you're right. It's hot and needed and wanted.
One of the things I was thinking about this while we were talking, one of the things that I tell agents that they get when I'm trying to explain how we value something without, quoting numbers, is if you take, say, Jasmine's house, you take her house and you put one exactly like it right next door. It's the same in every single way, except it has a pool. So now you have a buyer that comes up. How much are they going to give you? How much extra are they going to give you for the house? The only difference is the pool. Are they going to give you $65,000? No, they are not. Will they give you 15 or 20, maybe even 25? Yeah. So that's the basic mindset we have as appraisers when we're valuing. What does the market want to pay for this?
Okay, so let's take that same line of thinking. We take like Jasmine's house, whatever, let's say it's just there's 10 houses in a row. Okay. All exactly the same square footage, all the same amenities. One's a modern home, one's a traditional home, one's a log cabin, one's a castle, one's a Adobe
straw bale home.
Yeah.
This sounds like a week in my life. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Is this the style of the home considered?
The style of the home is considered. If you have something unique, like a log home, which I've appraised those and I hope to never do it again. You have to have at least one log home. And there's true logs and there's fake log homes. I don't know if you guys knew that. I know it. But as you guys know, what's most important to us is location, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms. I try to pick comparables that look like my subject. So I may not want to use a modern or a prairie style with a traditional. Sometimes you have to, just because they're the most recent comps or they have similar square footage. I don't really adjust for style, contemporary versus modern anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore because I think moderns, and especially mid-century moderns, have become very popular. But I think more so I would adjust for things like any green features. A lot of the moderns have, solar power or extra insulation, rain capture.
Geothermal.
Geothermal.
Yeah.
I love appraising greenhouses.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do because there's a lot of math involved, but I love it because you find out how much people are actually saving. I did one that was completely off the grid. This was many, many years ago. And their utility bills were $13 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was quite impressed.
That's amazing.
I like that.
So, yeah. Too bad
So-
there aren't more of them.
Running with the eco, how about beautiful manicured lawns and landscaping and mature trees? Does that come into play? It's not really part of the house, but it's part of the lot.
It's part of the lot, but it's not, to be honest, not really.
Okay.
I mean, a storm could come through and take down all your fruit trees. The items that are more tangible, like decks, fences, patios, walls, gates, things like that, are more things we can adjust for. It's really hard to quantify an adjustment to a lot with more trees than the other. And I understand the appeal. I really do, because, I'm a homeowner too.
Mhm.
But I think that's more of makes it easier to sell to a realtor than something I could put a value on.
So
I mean, there are
what
some basics you have to kind of have. You have to have a lawn, or you can't just like have dirt in front
Oh
of you.
yeah,
Right? So
yeah.
you've got to
You
have
have to have-
something down.
Right. You have to have a lawn, because that goes toward drainage,
Mhm.
proper drainage and things like that. So yes, you do have to have a lawn.
So the nugget I took from what you just said, I want to fact check, is make sure this nugget that I've stuck in my brain forever it holds true.
Uh-oh.
Did you seem to allude to that? Hey, if you want the most bang for your buck, or if you kind of want to push the appraisals, put in a deck or a fence. That's like the cheapest money return you're going to get back. Is that accurate?
Do you know why I think that too? Because they're one of the only dollar per dollar items that you can do, that you can, they're probably a little bit more expensive now, but if you spend $5,000 on a fence, you can get that back in value like that.
Mhm.
Decks, almost, the same thing. They've gotten a little bit more expensive recently, but putting in an alarm system, things like that, maybe audio system, things like that, you can almost get dollar per dollar value. So those are good improvements.
Mhm. Mhm.
I want to this can be an idea, because I like loopholes. Going back to the basement, below ground basement, fully finished. If I came in and hired a landscaper to just basically build a trench, a 10-foot trench around it to make everything quote unquote above grade now.
Like a
and there's-
moat.
No,
You
yeah,
have a moat.
well, you've got steps down. You build a deck.
Yeah.
You build a patio. Now everything's above ground. Would that work for you?
Well, if it's all above grade, then yeah.
Okay.
That,
Above grade, yep.
okay, so, but here's the rub, because now you have your first floor has no kitchen on it. Your second floor has kitchen out in it. That's kind of weird.
No, oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you would still have to use the front yard. I was just trying to do the backyard and the side yards, but if any of it's below grade, then it's all below grade. I got it.
I really like the moat idea, though. That's my favorite.
Well, so creeks or rivers, to me, that it's sometimes there's water view, but to me, it's also like you might have erosion. Is that sort of a mystery box of value? It could go either way.
I typically, if it's far enough away from the house, I don't see any issues with it. I think if you have a creek running through the backyard, I think that's a positive, and I'll give people credit for that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Okay. So I have a question. So what about multifamily?
what about them?
So
Lately, I'm the multifamily queen. That's
yes,
all
you
I'm doing
are.
lately.
Yes, you
Nice.
are. So, so questions that I typically get from my agents are things like, well, it's zone single family, but it's on 2 meters. It functions like it has 3 apartments. It functions like a triplex, but it's not really that on record. And so, how do you go? What do you do if you walk into something that's zoned as a single family, but it's like 3 apartments in a building?
Well, if it's zone single family and it's been developed into 3 apartments, then I would just call the lender right away and say, hey, this is not conforming. It's not conforming to zoning. If you did touch on something there with the meters, you have to have, if I go out to appraise it as a duplex and there's only one meter, then it's not truly a duplex. They have to have 2 gas meters, 2 electrical meters, all that kind of stuff. And I actually did one a few years ago where the lender made them go out and add the meters before they would close on the phone.
Oh, funny.
So I just did it subject to, as I recall. But yeah, that's becoming more and more of a question lately. And I will say this, and I think you guys know this, and it's a mystery to me why it is this way. But if you have the same size residence in a single family, it sells higher than the same size of an income property. I don't get that because they're income producing, but that's in the market here. That's kind of how it is. If you have something in Virginia Highlands, it's 3,000 square feet and it's a house, it's going to appraise much higher than it would if it were a duplex or a triplex.
I wonder what that is. That is interesting. I guess because it's.
I mean, it's well, I think it's a couple of things. One, and I think this is a problem in Atlanta because I've been that person who's taken a duplex and turned it into a single family, and I've added to the lack of housing. Right, I've taken one housing away from 2 people that were, let's call it they're not as wealthy, to turn it into $1 million home that one person family can buy. Right, and I hate that, but that's the business, and that was where the money is. But I come back to this. It's a primary home buyer will pay a premium because it becomes a lifestyle decision for them. They want that neighborhood. They want that big house. Like, they're willing to pay extra. They're not looking at it as an investment. An investor, I tell investors all the time, hey, if there's an income producing property, all the investors are probably you don't get into crazy bidding wars. They all sort of stop at the same time because they all know when it stops making money for them. Right. Yeah. So you almost avoid a lot of these crazy bidding wars because then all of a sudden people are buying assets that are losing them money and no investor is going to
Nobody's going to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, that's my theory. But it seems to make sense.
It sounds like a good theory to me.
Yeah. I like all those thoughts. So I think that it's sometimes you'll see like the listings in FMLS, they'll kind of say like, it rents, the upstairs is rented, the ADU is rented, the basement is rented, but it's really a single family, but it's got income producing potential. That's different because I feel like that is still going to sell as a single family with a basement and an ADU versus a triplex. Right. I think you might get a little bit hairy with appliances and kitchens and, zoning. That's a whole another story. But yeah, I think that would still sell better than a true triplex.
So
that's our market.
Yeah, I've got a question for both of you. I know this is how mortgage treat it, but I assume it's because this is how appraisers treat it. But you don't take into consideration short-term rental income. It's always going to be what long-term rental income is on these multifamilies. Is that accurate and correct? And do you see a future where you take into consideration the short-term rental income, which could be double or triple what it's making as a long-term rental?
I don't know. I think Jasmine could speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's always long-term rentals that the guidelines will allow for, unless you are an investor and you have had, let's say that you have a duplex that you have rented on Airbnb for 2 years, and now you can prove that each one of the units is making $50,000 a year, and you report it that way on your tax returns. Yes, I do have $100,000 I can use as income for you, but the guy next door is not going to be able to use $100,000 as rental income, as rent comps for him, right? Because he's just going to get the standard, what is the long-term market, which is $1,500 a unit per month.
Because that's where the real rental money comes from, the short term.
Yeah. But if that guy is buying the neighbor's house, and can he use that current owner's last 2 tax returns?
No. Okay. No, you could go either, like, if there's a lease in place, you can use that lease, or if that lease is expiring, you can use rent comps. Or if you get your own renter and they're going to pay $1,700 and the guy before was paying $1,500, as Kelly always, or the appraiser will always do like the rent comp analysis to make sure that holds true for what's in the market. Talk to us a little bit about that, Kelly. How do you come up with rent comps? Is it just similar to the rest of the appraisal process, or?
It is. It is. There's no mystery about it. I use FMLS because they have rental comps in there. Sometimes I have to go to other sources, looking online to see what things are renting for. But FMLS is really good because you know that it was leased. So I can say, okay, definitely this one was leased, and it has the dates and everything. And there's pictures of the inside. I can look inside and see if it's comparable to my subject. It's a, it's just the same as with appraising as sales comps. So,
All right.
There's no great mystery to it.
I want to switch gears for a second, and talk about, the rare occasion where, an agent and a buyer and a seller and appraiser don't agree on the value of a property, and the appraisal comes
That never
in low.
happens.
Yeah. Appraisal comes in low. Now we got an issue. What can a real estate agent do or a homeowner do to kind of push back and say, hey, I think it's worth more? And what would you need from me to change your mind?
Well, and Jasmine can speak to this too, but I would say comps. If there are comps that the appraiser didn't consider, now she may have considered them, but didn't use them for a certain reason, which she will gladly tell you why she didn't use them. But if they want to send comps, that's great. I mean, you can consider them and say why you didn't use them, or add it to the appraisal and consider it, or something of that nature. But really, if you're gonna call the lender or the appraiser and you're gonna nitpick every single little thing because you're mad because it didn't come into value, well, that doesn't get any of us anywhere. Let's either give some comps that maybe the appraiser didn't have. That is one way, and I did want to mention this in this conversation. Realtors could really help appraisers by giving them or sharing comps in their office that sold off market. They weren't in FMLS. The problem with realist tax records is we don't know about that sale for about a year, and then it's too late to use it. So when realtors ask me how they can help, if you've got something off market that sold, and I can, you can help me obtain the information so I can prove that it sold, and then I can use it. As a matter of fact, I spoke with someone in the Georgia Board of Appraisers, and because a lot of appraisers are saying that if it's not an FMLS, I can't use it. And so I went to them directly and I said, bottom line, tell me, what is my responsibility as an appraiser here? And they said, if you are given a comp that sold and it is similar to your subject, you're going to be in trouble if you don't use it. Okay. And I said, okay, that's good to know. But if it's similar, that's the key. But I think we all know that, especially during the height of this recent market, that there were a lot of things that sold and never went to FMLS. I hate that, because I don't get to consider it in my determination of value, because they're off here in the stratosphere somewhere, away from all the methods I use to determine value.
Okay, this is some pushback so you said provide comps, and so these are pushbacks that I've gotten before. I just want to see if this is still true. I've gotten a response that we can't use this comp because it was not under contract prior to this home being under contract.
It was not. It was. Wait a minute. Well, no. Well, the way I look at it is everything hinges on the effective date of the appraisal, and that's the day I go out and see the property. Okay. So no, I haven't heard that one.
Well, like so for instance, we follow. Okay, yeah. So I'm like, how about this comp? And you're like, the appraiser tells me, well, this one went under contract on June 15th, and that one went under contract June 17th. So I didn't look at that comp. And then also I understand this is sort of a gray area where it's like, okay, let's take it the other way. This one went under contract 25 days ago, but it closes next week. Here's the contract. We're through due diligence. Can you use that comp? Because it hasn't closed yet, but it's going to close before this one closes.
Yes, you know that we have really unlimited number of pages we can use comps. I would not use it as one of my first 3 comps because it hasn't sold yet. I would definitely add it to the appraisal if it's comparable and it's about to close, with a note on there saying I use this as a 4th comp because it's about to close. The appraiser reviewed the contract and here's the terms, and there you go.
How about a maybe a for sale by owner, or the agents representing their own home? Do you look at, hey, this one sold without any realtor commission and this one has 6% realtor commission, so is that factored into the purchase price?
Those are things you have to think about. But you guys, I'm seeing more and more that people are pretty savvy. So if they see a for sale by owner, they take that listing price, they subtract 6%, and that's their offer. So, they may have already taken that into consideration with the offer, but it's one of the things, as I stated before, it's really hard to get that information. It's hard to get, I need not a HUD one anymore, a closing statement. Something that I can prove. I need at least 2 methods of proof for every comp to show that they have closed. So that sometimes is hard to get in those.
And I heard there's almost like it has to be within 6 months. Like imagine the perfect comp was 7 months ago. Is that you can use it? It's just not weighted as heavily because it's a little bit more dated, even though it's the beautiful, most perfect comp.
Oh, beautiful, most perfect comp. I would definitely put it in there. But maybe make an adjustment for time.
Okay.
I've done that. I did that today, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And then how about within like a condo apartment building where pretty much all the floor plan's the same? The rule I go by usually is each higher floor is worth more, right? Maybe a corner is worth more.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. And you're not going to give me a number, but you can look at comps to see if it's 5% more, 10% more each floor you go up. How about like facing east or west or the sunset? Is that yes?
Most definitely. That is huge with condos, whether it's a corner unit, whether it looks over Stone Mountain, or it looks over Buckhead, or it looks over the Atlanta skyline. Some comps overlook other buildings. Sometimes I go to the window and look down and see a high rise coming up, and and I have to make an adjustment for that too, because they're about to have neighbors that are like 20 feet from them. So that's huge. And that's where the majority of the adjustments come from in the condos.
But with condos, you always you have to start within the complex, right? And then if you don't see any, or you don't have enough comps within the complex, then you kind of start expanding out, right? As you would. But I find that like condos are a little bit tougher. They appreciate slower than single family, because I feel like with a single family, you can hop 3 streets that way, 4 streets that way, and you're still within the parameter, versus with a condo, if you've got a 2-bedroom, 1 bath that just sold for $280, even though yours is the most beautiful, most upgraded, blah, 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 there was only so far above the 280 that you're going to be able to get.
Especially in the high rise. That is very true. So, my advice, not that anyone cares, my advice would be, if you're in a condo or a townhouse community, be careful how much you spend on those upgrades, because a lot of times the condo units that are not upgraded sell
for about the
same as the ones that are. So, again, we go back to this again. I wish people would have an appraisal done before they do their renovation.
Right. Well, I don't know. I'm on the other side, because most people are doing renovations again for primary reasons, not investment reasons. It's their lifestyle reasons, I should say.
That's true. When they're talking to me, though, that's all I hear.
Right.
Get out of it. So
Do you take into consideration financing terms, whether it's a FHA buyer or all cash? Does that ever come into play for you?
With the comparables, not so much the subject.
Okay.
Not so much the subject,
but
with
what
the
is worth more?
I might.
What would be worth, like a cash buyer makes it more valuable of a property?
No, not really. I might take into account if a cash buyer, if in my opinion they overpaid a little bit, that would be my concern because they maybe didn't have an appraisal done. Just each situation I kind of have to look at, but I'm not going to take a comp that, say one's conventional and the other one's FHA. I'm not going to adjust for that on the grid. I might adjust for, say, someone paid $20,000 in closing costs, which is excessive to me, depending on the price range, but I would adjust for that. So yeah, it's just, it's hard to say, in each case what you would do because every circumstance is so different.
Yeah. I think that being a good appraiser is really like, you have to be very numbers driven and scientific, but there is also like, it's really like an art form. Like you have to, it's hard to be a new appraiser and just to get the nuances of all of this stuff. I mean, both Alan and I have been doing this forever, and we're still kind of like, we see appraisals every day and we're like, so how did you come up with this? What about that? It's like, it really takes a lot. And I think the reason that you are so good at this is because you've really you've done it for a long time, and you really, and anytime we get an appraisal back, and if the value comes in low and I'm like, well, it's low because I know that you've thought through every possible angle of it, versus sometimes when we get an appraisal, it's just weird. I'm like, I don't know what these people were thinking about. I don't understand how this appraiser came up with this value. And that's the disconnect when like the mathematical part of the brain is not really talking to the the artistic makes sense, take all the different
right. You kind of have, you're right. That's a good point. You have to have those two different elements coming into it. But if you are getting hello if you're getting reports that are difficult to understand, that's a problem, because they're supposed to be explaining to you what's been done, and one of the criteria we have is that you never give someone a report that's intentionally or unintentionally misleading. So yeah, so if I ever send you a report and you don't understand why I did that, please let me know, and I'll be happy to tell you.
Maybe we end on this. Like, is it helpful for a real estate agent or homeowner to meet you at the house for when you do your appraisal, and like with a stack of the offers that are off market, or as answering any questions for you, or is there a sheet of paper that an agent can leave with things that would help you do your appraisal? Anything that we just haven't thought of?
There are a couple of things, and I'm telling you what, we have a lot of really good agents in Atlanta. We really do. We're lucky. There's a lot of really great agents that go above and beyond. They don't know. I had an agent yesterday that met me here in East Atlanta. She drove from Woodstock, and she drove all the way down here just to let me in with the Supra. And I was like, oh my God, the poor thing. She drove so far. So I don't basically, no, they don't have to meet me there. I love it when they meet me there because people are very nice, and I enjoy meeting people because I have a very solitary job. But they don't have to. They can send me comps. They can call me on the phone. They can email me something, and that's fine. The things that I need the most from them are a list of the upgrades and about when they were done, because I have to put that in the appraisal, anything like that. And if they know of any off-market comps that have sold.
There is no need for a real estate agent to go to FMLS and print out all the comps that they think you should be using.
But they do. They do. I mean, it makes them feel better, I guess.
But
they don't have to.
But I kind of, in my mind, I feel like that's a little bit of an insult. I'm like, the appraiser knows their job. They know how to log into FMLS and grab comps. I think if you're going to offer comps, I would suggest, like you said, off market things that are actually valuable that maybe you can see in Realist or in FMLS.
And there's one particular firm here that's really good that I can call them and say, hey, you got any off-market comps here? You guys always have some, and I'll have an agent call me back with a list, and that's great.
So maybe it's a good practice would be like, if you're about to, if you're worried about the value or something, maybe just shoot off an email to your team or your office and be like, hey, does
Right.
anybody have any off market sales in Decatur or whatever area of town over
Right.
the last 6 months? And maybe
Those
you
are very
drum up a
valuable.
couple, 3 things for the appraiser. Yeah.
And most offices have their private Facebook pages. They could just type, hey, anybody know of any in Oakhurst that have sold off market, and then that would be helpful. That would be helpful. And, to go back to what you said, I am not insulted when people show up with comps in hand. I am not insulted, because I think that their job is to protect and look out for the best interest of their client. And that's part of what they're doing. Maybe I should be insulted. I don't know. But, I just figure we're all
yeah. Kelly, I'm looking for an ally in a debate that I'm having with the entire internet.
Leave it to Alan to drag you into some mischief.
So there was a viral social media post where which I completely disagree with, but it caught fire and it got traction, where it was basically saying, hey, these iBuyer programs, Redfin, Orchard, Knock, whatever, they are willing to overpay by 15-20% on property, because what happens is that it automatically raises the price of the properties they already own by 15 to 20%, and they're juicing the comps for their own assets that they already own. On the surface, that sort of seems great, but the way I look at it is, when I had multiple homes in the same neighborhood, I sold one to an iBuyer program way over market price. If I went to go list the other one at that much higher price, I'm just going to have crickets. There's no one going to walk through the door, even though I have one comp that's crazy. Even if I get an appraisal, the buyer's going to know it's overpriced. The real estate agent, the buying agent's going to know it's overpriced. The appraiser is going to come in and say, well, we got one crazy comp, but no others. What is that a strategy that these iBuyer programs could actually do, is to juice their own portfolio by overbuying and
well, if that's what they're trying to do, they're not doing a very good job. Okay. Because I'll be honest with you, most of the time when I pull those comps, and I always look to see the D transfer, who bought it, Redfin or this and that and the other thing, Orchard. Most of the time they're the lowest comps I have.
Okay.
I would argue it the other way. I would argue that they don't have enough properties in every town to be even trying to raise, values. Orchard, for example, what do they have? Like even 100 homes in Atlanta. I don't know. Like the numbers are not that, they couldn't inflate the values that much. I think it's more just part of their system, because they're trying to systematize everything so much, is that they're using shortcuts. They're not using actual appraisers. Maybe they're just using quick AVMs, or maybe they're using some other algorithm, and they don't actually have feet on the street appraisers driving by looking at the properties. I think it's more of an error.
100%. So like when I sold mine, so yeah, I mean, I had to do a walkthrough video. No one ever showed up. I did a walkthrough video on my video and sent it to them, and they're like, okay, that's good. Never sent an inspector. They'd sent an inspector only to walk the outside of the property, and then closed. So they didn't send an appraiser because they had cash, and it was like how I was like Googling how to short stocks, because I'm like, this company's going to go under.
It's not a good idea. I mean, maybe they're looking to lose money. Maybe they need write-offs.
Yeah. Or it's a lead. That would make sense. Yeah, it's a lead magnet.
I will say, to your point, one comp does not a value make.
Yes.
So if it's just one comp, but it likens me back to a time pre-2007 where we did have straw buyers, and we did have people out there. They would purchase the houses at inflated values. Then they would go in and have appraisals done to refinance or pull cash out of their houses. And then those other houses foreclose. Okay. Right. So, and the other thing is, if you take, for example, if I'm appraising a new construction, I have to have at least one comp that's outside of that neighborhood to make sure the buyer or the builder isn't creating his own market. and that's very similar to what you're talking about there. They're trying to create their own market, and it's the F word, which is fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying they're
Yeah. So
but that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
So I guess like a builder building a neighborhood says, hey, I'm going to make this luxury. So it's going to be 200K than all other homes, but I'm going to make it bigger and nicer and use finished materials. You're saying that teeters on fraudulent activity?
No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying people can price it at whatever they want to, but I have to go out there and prove it's equivalent to the general market. So I have to go as far as I can to find that, say 3,000 square house with all the upgraded luxury and this and that. Where's the nearest one and how much are people paying for? If it's the same, that's fine. No, I'm not saying that's fraudulent,
okay.
but it has to be supportable. I think that's, no, the fraudulent word is more for, I think back to that time in the early 2000s where people were pulling all kinds of shenanigans.
Yeah.
That's another podcast.
Yes. Well,
I love
Kelly, this has been wonderful. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, picking your brain. I think this is one of our best episodes ever. I can't wait to share this.
So nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us on Agent Upgrade today. I know everyone listening's got some value out of this. A lot of value, I would imagine.
I hope so. Thank you so much. And I'm always here. I have lots and lots and lots of realtor friends, and they call me for advice occasionally, and I'm happy to advise. I'm happy to do pre-listing appraisals, whatever they need. So yeah, realtors and appraisers, they're not like Tom and Jerry, they're not cats and dogs. We need to all work together.
I love it.
So
people can find you on Instagram. You are at Kelly the Appraiser.
I am.
And
Kelly, thank you for reminding me about that.
Yeah.
I'm not very good on social media.
Yeah, well, I send kellytheappraisal.com website out quite frequently as well. So,
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate you guys so much.
It was lovely. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Agent Upgrade podcast. If you are an agent looking for a new mortgage lender, start with Jasmine at jasmineteam.com. If you want to learn about real estate investing and working with investors, check in with Alan at thehouseofac.com. See you next time on Agent Upgrade.